Hey, welcome to Sound Thinking. I'm Marty Duda, and we got another exciting episode today. 4 new releases to review for you. We've got Veronika Bell is going to review the new MGMT album. Chris Warne is here with Bird Machine's EP. I'm going to talk about the new Greg Johnson album, but we're going to start things off with Jeff Neems and a new record from, I think it's their second record, from Auckland's favorite hip-hop duo, Church and AP. Hit it, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Marty, and kia ora, team. Good to be back on the podcast again. Church and AP, actually quite a new name to me, although evidently they've been plugging away recording hip-hop music since about 2018, very much in the same sort of style as Mellow Downs, Homebrew, a lot of the sort of West Auckland hip-hop sound. Must be honest and say I hoped for a lot here and didn't quite get what I expected. Musically, the production is really good. Like the beats and the rhythms are really nice. They're very diverse. These guys do a little bit of a sort of a boom bap style on the track Dreams, which I think Marty's going to play a bit of shortly, which is probably the best track on the album. And that's got sort of almost a little country lick going on there to punctuate the groove. There's some of your more contemporary drill and grime sounds. And, you know, as beat makers, they're doing a really nice job. But unfortunately, what lets this down is the lyrical content. They've tried really hard to sort of be philosophical and perhaps a little bit sociological, but it ends up just coming across a bit crass in places. I've been listening to rap music for 35 years, and what I have learned in over those 3 and a bit decades is that you don't have to swear constantly to make your point. And unfortunately for Church and AP, when it gets to a point where they're dropping C-bombs through their songs, I'm kind of switching off, really, bearing in mind that I remember NWA coming out with Straight Outta Compton, which was absolutely littered with foul language, but at least the littering was in the right places, whereas here with Church and AP it feels like it's just trying a little bit too hard. But maybe, Marty, you want to hit us with a little bit of Dreams, which is the best song on the record, but sadly only 90 seconds long.
All right, here it comes.
Aim high, swing low, go the safe route. Told me keep your head down, I'm too busy spaced out. Focus on the detail, keep it on the D-low. Hold my chin high, we don't hear no, see no, watch them. We know, unapologetic with the content. Reload, trying to do it better. Run a different race, send a different letter. Really set the pace for the game, new meta, that's us.
Well, I've been dreaming for a night or two about your lips and your eyes so blue. Well, I've been dreaming for a night or two about your lips and your eyes so blue.
Okay, that's Dreams from Church and AP, and we've got Jeff to tell us a little bit more about the record.
Yeah, so there's quite a lengthy and quite gushy media release came with this, Marty, and it talked a lot about these guys being New Zealand's favourite hip-hop duo and Auckland's favourite hip-hop duo, which kind of took me by surprise because, to be honest, I'd never heard of them.
I didn't know we had a favorite hip-hop duo, so I didn't know that was even the thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, I guess it depends on, where you go to consume your New Zealand hip-hop music. I personally don't listen to Flavour FM or My FM, although I do readily acknowledge that they have massive audiences among the communities that this music certainly appeals to. It reminded me a lot, Marty, well, the experience of listening to the album reminded me a lot of going to that Larry June show for you last year, where I turned up with very high expectations and very high hopes of liking it. And tried really, really hard to like it, but ultimately I just couldn't. I think these guys have got something. I mean, if they put a bit more thought into it and maybe they sort of veered more towards the jazzy, soulful, funkier kind of sound, which is personally what I'm into, it would be a lot more interesting and perhaps it would have a more diverse and broader appeal. But too much of it to me sounded like gangster posturing. Yep. And yep, I readily acknowledge that for some people that's their social reality. But rap has been there and done that for 25 or 30 years. And I mean, I think if you're going to work in a genre like rap and hip hop, you've really got to try a bit harder to come up with something a bit different and something I think that speaks to more people than just the demographic that you represent. So, really wanted to like it, Marty, and I can see that there would be an audience for this. But I just couldn't dig it, and I think, as I've noted in my review that's already up on the website, more than a couple of listens and I was done. Really, it was sort of ditched in the also ran folder, and almost had a sense of what could have been, but wasn't.
Okay, well, I think to give folks an example of what you didn't like about the record, let's check out Mathematics. I think that's got some of the lyrical content that you might find unsavory.
Yeah. I don't smoke crack, motherfucker, I sell it. I don't sell pee, motherfucker, I push it. Mate, no mucking around. Phone ring, who the fuck is it now? I was gonna beg for forgiveness, till I realized I ain't sorry. I was gonna fake for the listeners, but on second thought, don't worry. If they don't fuck with this sound, then fuck them. If I don't get love in this town, then fuck them. If they wanna count me out, then let them. I ain't stressing. I make sure I send it so you get the message. Young kid from Henderson, but I'm still gon' flex it. Biggest Texas, if they forget we a threat turned into hashtags. Did you catch that, bitch? You guessed it. How good can you swim with fishes? Fish islands, they look suspicious. I'm semi, I stay automatic. Money and then multiply, I call it mathematics. Money and then multiply, I call it mathematics.
All right, that's Mathematics. I think that was a single from the Church and AP record. Is that true, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right. That's the lead-off single. And I mean, these guys have had some kudos, Marty. They've had a few music awards, which I think reflects obviously that there's some support for them. They have had some international exposure, which is obviously awesome. But if I stack it up against Mellowdown's, homebrew,
Right.
Lady Six, it just doesn't quite meet the standard that I'm after, and so ultimately a little
All
disappointed.
right, Veronika or Chris, do you have anything to add to any of that?
Yeah, so something that I guess I've learned, like I'm all for just to sort of touch on what Jeff said about metaphor versus what's the word? Metaphor versus like exact language and exactly what you're trying to say. I think that there's a very fine line between wanting to sound and I'm not saying that these young men are not intelligent, quite the contrary. I think they're very, very bright, but I think that there becomes a point where you use so many metaphors that you don't really understand what the song is about. And I think that, yeah, I would argue that Homebrew is probably one of New Zealand's favourite hip hop groups, and Tom Scott is an absolute legend. Personally, that's my own personal opinion. But I mean, I listen. This is coming from a lady who was incredibly foul mouthed. I wasn't I was not. I've never heard a C-bomb in a song, and I've listened to a lot of music. I mean, there's like "See You Next Tuesday," right? That's okay. That's funny. That's like tongue in cheek.
Right.
It was a surprise. But I mean, I neither hated it nor it was okay. It was all right. It's not Tom Scott though.
Yeah, I liked the general sound of this record. It was more mellow than I was expecting. So I'd seen them live, and it's a very energetic and exciting kind of show. So I liked Dreams. I thought that was a great track. Had a really smooth, clean, jazzy guitar. And I could decipher some of the lyrics and the metaphors in there. There's a little bit of cultural tension and ideas of success from, earlier generations versus today. I thought that was cool. But I did get a bit hung up on things that Veronika and Jeff have named too. I couldn't tell if they were kind of being subversive and playing with stereotypes or whether they brought into those stereotypes. A song like Fly on the Wall, it's got some really kind of wholesome ideas of, being patient with a partner and sharing a world together, but it also describes how good at sex he is and how much he, needs that pussy. Like it's kind of like just... I wasn't sure what to make of that. I left a bit confused of what my take was, of what their take is.
Like it's being used for shock value. I got the feeling from it. It's just like, oh, look what we said. Oh no, Whereas Jeff, you used a word that I prefer, funky, which I think there was one track that had some funk going on it, and that made me happy. That was a song called Throne Signs. So maybe we'll listen to a little bit of that, and then we'll wrap things up with Church and AP.
throwing signs up. Beef, throwing signs up. North, throwing signs up. East, throwing signs up. West, throwing signs up. South, throwing signs up. Throwing signs up. You hear the sounds 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 up. That's what the sound was. I get around cause in and out cause you know the outcome. It be a wild one. I've been a wild one since I've been around, son. These rappers my next to
Okay, that's Throne Signs, Church and AP. I think a thumbs not down but not up review on that one. Maybe they need to work on their lyrical content a little bit more and get a little bit funkier. All right, well, let's move on. Veronika, you have a new album by MGMT, and you were looking forward to it. How does it shape up?
I mean, look, it was certainly not. It wasn't bad. Okay, I'll preface it by that. Okay, it was all right. I guess because I'm so used to MGMT being like that sort of nostalgic, psychedelic kind of like synthy pop, almost indie rock pop, synthy, psychedelic sort of stuff. That's sort of what I was like expecting. Like Walking on a Dream. That's sort of, I guess, it is one of the most popular songs for a reason, but it is also one of my favorite because it sort of encompasses all of those genres into one. And I guess I wasn't sure whether MGMT was trying to like desperately clutch at, this whole Y2K revival that is happening at the moment. I mean, I think that their music is relatively timeless. I think it's one of those things that will always sort of come in and out of fashion. But when I've heard the opening track, The Loss of Life, Part 2, which we should listen to start with immediately.
Taliesin, I sing perfect meter, which will last to the end of the world.
I know wonder is an echo in a hollow.
Why silver gleams, why breath is black, why liver is bloody,
Why a cow has horns.
Why a woman is affectionate.
Why milk is white.
why holly is green,
Why a kid is bearded.
Why the cow parsnip is hollow. Why brine is salt.
why ale is bitter, why the linnet is green and berries red.
Why a cuckoo complains. Why it sings.
Okay, so that was Loss of Life, Part 2. I was really excited. I thought, oh, this is going to be really cool. It's going to be real, kind of touching on themes of like futuristic kind of themes. It was giving me space. It was giving me that like psychedelic kind of expectation that I had with the record. But coming into the second song, it was almost like I was like sober immediately. It was
I hate when that happens.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, because and I thought, oh, it's so cool, it's transitioning into the next song. And this is sort of what I was saying, in one of the earlier podcasts, like I love it when albums do that. I like it when every song flows on from the other. I think it's really cool. It's really cool storytelling. But to be honest with you, there were no songs really that kind of stuck out to me with really strong pop hooks, which is okay. Yes, they are a band. They are indie rock, pop, synth, psychedelic, whatever. But there was no pop hooks. Like Walking on a Dream is such a hook.
Yep.
No hooks. But what I will say is, I feel like in songs like Dancing in Babylon, it was like kind of like building towards this climax that never really kind of came, and sort of went straight into I don't know, it just kind of ended. Do you know what I mean? So,
and they got Christine and the Queens on that one with them, right?
Yeah, yes, they do.
Out on the street, the real heads trying to keep it low.
Saw you move to the beat and I was blown away. It's all you need to know. Maybe I mistook pure distraction for a flash of love.
I wanna clear the air by Monday, if all the tanks are gone.
And when it sails
they've still got that like classic MGMT sound. I like that they haven't really necessarily changed their vocal delivery too much. I like that it sounds like them. It just, unfortunately, in comparison to their early works, and call me out if I'm being wrong, I feel like they kind of became not irrelevant, but they sort of lost their relevancy and their hype over the last like 10, 15 years. And because of TikTok, making those earlier songs go viral, I'm wondering, like, did they decide, we're just going to like slap together a record to clutch at these, relevancy straws? I don't know.
Right.
But, what I found particularly interesting was that you've got Loss of Life Part 2, which opens the album, and then you've got Loss of Life, the just the normal one, I guess, that finishes the album. So I listened to the album from 1 till 10. So Loss of Life, Mother Nature, that way.
Yep.
And then I listened to it backwards. So I listened to Loss of Life, I Wish I Was Joking, Freddy's song. And I was thinking, maybe there are actually two sides of the story. But again, what is the story? What is the story? Again, I was thinking space, aliens. I was getting real excited. Tinfoil hat, come on, but no, I don't know. What else did I have to say? Okay,
maybe we should highlight one more song.
I would say my favorite song is actually Dancing in Babylon, but I mean, I think Christine sounds fabulous. So
right. Okay.
That was my pick too, Dancing in Babylon. It reminded me almost in the vocal melodies, a bit like the River era Bruce Springsteen. It felt really, really warm, and then it sort of trips out into synthy, weird instrumentation. But I had a strong Springsteen vibe.
Oh,
interesting. Okay. Yeah, I can hear that now that you've mentioned it. I mean, it was a great record. I think because they, have come from such a peak, it was not as great as I was anticipating for it to be, but it's certainly one of the better albums that I've listened to of late. I just was hoping for a little bit more of their nostalgia that sort of rose them to fame. But I mean, I guess you do have to evolve as an artist, you do have to change, but I think it was just felt like a bunch of B-sides to me, honestly.
Sometimes there's just change for change's sake, which doesn't really work all the time.
Exactly.
Did you get a vibe?
My main vibe on this album was, what does the band's name mean? Is it an abbreviation for management? And oh my gosh, why am I skipping every song after about 35 seconds? Sorry, Veronica, I just couldn't dig it.
Honestly, that's fair. I understand.
I felt like they were deliberately trying to be not pigeonholed into anything, and I get that. You want to try and carve your own niche and create your own identifiable, unique sound. But I was listening to it. I think it was Thursday night, and my wife from the next room yelled out, "What is this?" and I said, "It's MGMT. I have to review it for Marty." And she said, "It's terrible." And I said, "That's harsh but fair." So
it is so
on the podcast.
It kind of gave me what I will add on to that, Jeff, if it's all right, is it kind of one thing that I did write in my notes here was reminds me of one of the bands that was practicing when I was studying music at uni, maybe needs more work on the vocal delivery and the songwriting structure. That I did say. So
boy. Yeah. Well, one song that I thought we can listen to is Bubblegum Dog, which had a kind of Bowie-esque feel about it. But I also wrote a word after it that you used quite a bit in your review, Veronica, which is irrelevant. So, that's never good. Let's give that a spin, and then we'll come back and wrap things up with MGMT.
Till
right, that's Bubblegum Dog. I got to say, I really was bored to tears with this record. I was very disappointed with it, and I never want to hear it again.
I must be feeling nice today because I love the savagery.
And I thought I was being harsh, but you just tell us what you really think.
Well, that's what we're here for. No, I thought it was pretentious. Like the whole idea of starting the album with "Loss of Life" Part 2 as the first track, and then ending it with a song called "Loss of Life." I just thought, oh, these guys are just jerking around. I mean, come on. What's the point? And they kind of touch on all these little various genres, but don't really say anything or do anything or make any kind of statement. You're right. There's no hooks anywhere. I don't remember. I did listen to the whole thing, and I don't remember one song that stayed stuck in my mind.
And I remember okay, so something that I find like is every songwriter needs to have a song on a record that you would go and get those lyrics tattooed on your body. There was nothing life-changing for me.
Oh, did you cry? Did you cry though, Veronika? Because you've been crying. No, well then.
Maybe from disappointment, but not.
I thought the whole thing was just a bit wishy-washy, really, wasn't it? I mean, it just doesn't really go anywhere, as Veronika's just kind of touched on. It doesn't say anything. Just garbage. Sorry.
That's it with them. Let's stick with the Kiwi music then. We got Bird Machine. I love Bird Machine. They were just up here at my studio a couple days ago playing a couple songs from this EP, and they've been here before. They're from Hamilton, but we won't hold that against them. Chris, what do you think?
Hey.
Sorry about that, Jeff.
Well, I'm really happy.
That's it. I'm done. I'm done with this podcast.
Hamilton or not, I'm bringing the positivity for this review because their EP, Hey Human, I absolutely loved it. And I went back to it 5 or 6 times over the last week, and it got better with each listen. So overall, it just has incredible songwriting and arrangements and a vocal performance to die for. I kind of put this EP in 2 halves in my brain. The first 3 songs are straight up power pop. So I might get you to play, Marty, the 3rd track, You'll Be Fine.
You hide away when it's getting hard, 'cause it's easier than when you gave it up. When you looked outside, weren't you holding on? See, I gave my hand to you just to save it all. Now you're worried everything has broken, but you'll be fine.
Got a fantastic hook in there that has been in my brain all week, and it's so catchy. So when I read their sort of write-up, they talked about being kind of a mix of like 90s alt rock, but to me, when I listened to this, it sounded straight power pop to me. It reminded me of Taylor Swift, of Paramore, of Brandi Carlile, these really like full-on vocally trained women who can belt out choruses, shift between different registers without losing power or without losing volume. Her singing was superb. So I think that played into the hookiness of Bird Machine's EP. And yeah, as I sort of got over halfway through the EP, I was thinking, okay, is this kind of just what they do? This is their sound. It's good. I like it. But I was relieved when it actually changed into the fourth track, and they had a real kind of shift in vibe and emphasis, which shows that they're capable of quite a few different directions. So my favorite track on the record was track number 4. It's called Through the Windows.
Say what you're thinking about. Throw another curveball. Look at what you've got in your hand. Say what you're thinking on what you're holding back. Look to the future.
This one, it's a more subtle song. It doesn't amp up to that power pop chorus, and it's got a little bit more of like a pulsating nighttime vibe. Lovely layers of keys and synth. Remind me a little bit of the dream pop of Beach House or the lush layers of Slow Dive. So some of those more alternative influences were a bit more apparent. If I had one criticism, it would be that some of the rockier elements of Bird Machine kind of get a bit squished and compressed on this EP. The vocals, and it might just be a production choice, but the vocals are louder.
I know they produce it all themselves at home, so they maybe they need a big studio to get to at some point.
I think they would do well in a big studio because knowing that they've made that at home themselves, that's an incredible feat. But it did sound like the drums were maybe a bit compressed, and I would love to hear it fleshed out as a full band. So they could either lean fully into the alt rock or they could steer it fully towards pop.
Right, because I should point out that the band themselves are actually a couple, Luke and Jenna Gerben, who live in Hamilton. Luke is originally an Australian, and he loves his shoegaze. He's the guitar player, shoegaze and grunge and all that stuff. And Jenna has got the voice, and and she does a lot of the production work as well. So that's who they are. They have a couple of kids. I think the title of the EP, which is called Hey Human, is what one of the kids says when they're walking around the street and sees somebody else walking towards them.
That's cute. That's wholesome, man. I love
what a
that.
Power couple, these two. That's amazing.
Yes.
How do they not get sick of each other? That's amazing.
Well, there's a lot of tension in the lyrics actually around, hey, if you're wanting to stay, why are you walking away? Or kind of these unspoken dynamics, kind of Taylor Swift-esque. So maybe we can read into those. Sorry, I cut you off.
That's fine. I mean, hooks, hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. You know what? Because I actually listened to this after MGMT and I thought,
it's like a relief.
Great voice, really cool voice. I really don't have a lot to say. Hooks.com, loved it.
All right,
really liked it.
And Jeff, what do you think?
I need to go into bat for Hamilton as a place where great music is produced.
I can't argue with you here, man.
I so agree, Jeff.
I agree.
Yeah, so I'm just going to rattle off some names of some Hamilton bands or performers that have generated some exposure. So we produced the Datsuns, we've produced Kimbra. I mean, maybe a little bit of overreaching perhaps, but Split Ends were from Te Awamutu, half an hour down the road. Right. From Hamilton. Four Corners, the hip hop act, were from Hamilton. So I'm not personally familiar with these guys. I just did a Google image search to see if I could recognize them, and I actually can recognize. I can recognise them. They do look familiar. But I think as a small city, 150, 160,000 people, I think Hamilton is generally punched above its
Right.
weight musically. And the frustration for me as a long-time Hamiltonian who's been involved in the music and entertainment community here for a long time is that the mainstream bar industry, where you might hear L.A.B. being played, has sort of killed off the live music scene a little bit. But there are still there's a core of hardcore committed people still doing authentic, original, non-mainstream music here in Hamilton. And as a Hamilton person, I'm actually really proud of that. So Bird Machine, I think, adding to the city's legacy as a place where good music is produced, and I'm glad to see they're getting a bit of exposure. So thanks, Chris, for putting your hand up to review some of my hometown's finest.
Yay, let's hear it for Bird Machine. Love it, love it, love it. And like I said, there is a session that just was recorded a couple days ago with the duo here at the 13th floor, so you can watch it and listen to that and get a little more insights into their songwriting process. Alrighty, now we move on to another Kiwi, Greg Johnson, but he lives in L.A. these days, but he's been making music for 30 plus years, I think. And this new album is called Thunder and Fall, and I think it's what is this? Like it's his 13th solo album, I think. So he's cranking them out, and I think it's one of his best ones, to be perfectly honest. The guy's in his mid-50s now, and he seems to be kind of in a groove, more than in a groove. He's kind of stepping out of his groove a little bit with this, which is what you kind of need to do. You need to mix things up. But he's a great songwriter, and I think he won a Silver Scroll Award a few years back, so he has been getting some of his due, and his song called Save Yourself, which probably everybody knows, which was kind of his breakthrough hit in the States, which is why he spent so much time there. But anyway, the new album is called Thunder and Fall, and it kind of has indicates a darker, ominous vibe about it. And there is some of that in the lyrics because he does live in the U.S. and you know what's going on over there, so it's going to rub off on what's going on around him. But let's start out with a song. Well, we'll start with the opening track. It's called The Next Trip Around the Sun from Greg Johnson.
Don't let the dancing stop. They'll be waiting to close up shop. I say keep it all open. We're in for an Arctic blast. Or is it cold just a thing of the past? Crack the window a little so we feel like we're living. I promise you we'll try to have more fun on our next trip around the sun. Trip around the sun.
Okay, that's Greg Johnson. Thunder and Fall is the album. We just heard The Next Trip Around the Sun. And apparently the album got its genesis when he bought a used upright piano online, sight unseen, and it turned out to have a great little sound to it. So he's got it in his studio, and then he was so excited by the piano that he wrote all the songs on the album except for the one cover that's on it. So that's kind of cool. And he's got a couple of folks helping him out that are either from the States or from New Zealand. Ben King being probably the biggest well-known name, who's a Kiwi guy who's on everybody's records these days. I think and but the piano is a sound, and Greg is a melodic songwriter. He can write a hook or two. Veronika, you'll be happy to hear that. And let's see, I'm just trying to see which next track I want to play for you. I wouldn't say he's breaking new ground, but what he does very well on this record. So there is and he has a neighbor, a friend. Do you know who Julia Fordham is? She's an English folk singer, and she now lives in Los Angeles as well. And she showed up to sing on one of the tracks on the record. And so this has got kind of an English folky, almost Scarborough Fairish vibe to it. But the voices sound great, and the song is called Smile or Frown.
We've had so much time to think about it, but we always just leave it till last.
That's Smile or Frown from Greg Johnson from his new album. Greg and Julia Fordham sounding well. It's pretty cool that, the Kiwi and the Londoner or the English folk singer getting together in L.A., making music there with all this weird stuff going around in the States. People always ask me, do I want to go back there? I was like, no way, man. No way. So, anyway, there is all of the songs on Thunder and Fall are Greg Johnson originals, except for he does finally cover a track. And apparently this is the first time he's done a cover on any of his albums. And he chooses an REM song. So I don't know how you guys feel about REM or if you have a favorite REM song, but the one he has chosen is Drive. You guys know that one?
Classic.
You're shaking your head.
Off automatic for the people.
Jeff, no, okay. Well, I think it's one of those songs that if you hear it, and you're going to hear it in a minute, you'll probably recognize it. So we'll give a listen to Greg Johnson's version of REM's Drive.
Smack, crack, push away. Tie another one to the Rex, baby. Hey kids, rock and roll. Nobody tells you where to go. What if I ride? What if you walk? What if you rock around the clock on tick tock, tick tock? What if you did? What if you walked? What if you tried to get on?
What's going through your head, Veronika?
Okay.
I can see what you're doing with your hands in front of your face.
I am so ashamed. I feel like I have been living in an alternate timeline because I honestly thought that song was a Pink Floyd song.
Oh, well, now I see that makes sense.
I can, yeah,
Yes, it
absolutely.
connects.
I can see how you would think
Oh
that.
my goodness, the shame!
No.
Shame. Okay.
But forced to choose between REM and Pink Floyd, I'm
Pink
going with
Floyd.
REM
REM
every god.
every
No
time.
way, REM every time.
Every
oh my
time.
god, Pink Floyd, one of the most terrible, overrated, boring bands in all of popular music history.
All right.
And I've got a rare copy of Dark Side of the Moon, and I paid $1 for it in a charity store.
Wow, that's fabulous.
You just need to have their first album, the one with Sid Barrett on it. That's the cool one.
Yeah.
Well, see, I don't know REM, so I can't comment now because I thought it was Pink Floyd. So maybe I will change my mind.
Yeah, I lived briefly in the USA in the early mid-90s when they were just huge, Orange Crush and Stand and those sort of songs. And I can't say I was ever a big fan, but I could see why a lot of people liked it. So.
Well, they were huge where I saw them early on because they just toured incessantly during the first half of the 80s, and they would be playing every other week somewhere near me. So, and they were a great live band. And but anyway, enough about REM. We're talking about Greg Johnson, who covered REM. But that's cool.
Sorry, Greg.
Divergence. That's cool. Yeah. So I think it's a great pick for a cover. So it generates some thoughts and feelings and all that good stuff. So overall, I have a good feeling about this record. And Greg is coming back to New Zealand beginning of May or March rather, and he's got like a 15 tour thing set up, so he'll be all over the country, and I recommend that people go see him. So that's my take on Greg Johnson. Anybody else want to say something about Greg overall? Chris?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'll jump in quickly if I could. Sorry,
yes.
Chris, didn't mean to cut you off. I admire Greg is another veteran New Zealand musician whose stickability I really admire, and I mean he's one of a number of artists who have plugged away very consistently for a long period of time, making a living out of music when I think a lot of lesser individuals would have given it away. I think his music has very broad appeal. A lot of people like Greg because it's easily consumable. He can, his music relates to them, and I'm pleased for his success. I didn't actually realize, Marty, that he was based in Los Angeles now, but it makes sense because he, as you just touched on with the earlier comment, he does seem to crop up in New Zealand every couple of years for a tour. So yeah, all power to the guy. He knows what his groove is. He stays in his lane, and it works for him. And I think that's great.
All righty. Chris?
Nice. I thought the record had a nice aesthetic. All the songs being centered around the piano, but I also felt that kind of let the record down a little bit too. It was just kind of there. It was kind of in the middle of the road, not that offensive, just middle of the road, but not super interesting. To me, there was some little sort of flourishes that made it sound a bit more diverse. You know, there's a kind of Spanish tinged guitar in Grasslands track 4.
Oh yeah,
Lovely
the guy named
vocal
Steve
melody.
Katz plays on that. Yep, that's nice.
Aha, yeah. And it's an accomplished little guitar piece, but I also wasn't sure how it added to the greater whole. It was just kind of there for the sake of variation. And there's a few moments like that when there's kind of some electronic beats in there, or these horns and Smile and Frown, although I actually genuinely like the horns and Smile and Frown. That added to a greater whole. But it felt like there were kind of attempts at trying to make a more diverse record, and I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was just voice and piano and let it be what it is.
All right, Veronika, we'll let you have the last word on this one.
I mean, look, he's a 5-time APRA Scroll finalist for a reason. So great songwriter. Interesting you said that, Chris, about the piano and the vocals kind of make it a little bit more acoustic. I vibe with that sort of stuff. I'll be real, I'm not super familiar with his work, but
you're too young.
Listen, it was cool. It was all right. A lot of interesting metaphors that were obvious in there, which I liked.
All right.
A good balance, I think, between what does this mean and I think it actually means this.
Right.
But yeah,
right. Very
I
good.
think 3 great albums this week.
Okay, very good. Now, speaking of great albums, since we've done the 4 that we're going to talk about, the one that's come out today or this week is the new L.A.B. album, cleverly titled, I think it's 4 or 6, I can't remember.
6, yeah.
6, yeah. And then,
it's their 6th album.
That's all I've heard. Now, I'm going to just say, and I'm not the biggest fan, but they're huge. So if we were doing this for money, we would probably made this the album that we reviewed first and said great things about it, and everybody would think it would be wonderful. I did listen to the record. It's not bad. It's just it is what it is. They're pretty good at what they do.
It's just inoffensive barbecue reggae, though, to me. Like
no, yes and no. I listen to it as well. I mean, I just a disclaimer. I am a reggae nerd, but I only listen to reggae from Jamaica. I don't listen to reggae from New Zealand. I had to listen to it. Thank you, Ron. We'll take that offline, and I'll tell you about all the stuff I like. Just on this particular record, I think they're just trying to break out from beyond the barbecue reggae framework and do just a few different things. So there's some sort of almost housey electronic beats on there. There's a couple of down-tempo kind of folky moments. And yeah, as Marty said, these guys are huge. I didn't actually quite appreciate how big they are until people started asking me to play their music at the bar where I DJ, and I was like, sorry. But a reflection of just how big they are, and so I'm going to go slightly tangential, but this is important. I watch a lot of cricket, okay? And in short form white ball cricket, they play music between the overs in the games. And that's even now seeping through to test cricket, the long form. Where am I going with this? L.A.B. gets played at the cricket, okay? And if you want an indicator of how popular a band is to mainstream New Zealand music consumers, if you're being played at the cricket between the overs, you are big. And when I listened to this album this morning before coming on the podcast, I realized I had heard 3 songs from this album at the cricket.
Wow, okay.
And one of those songs really interested me. It's called Casanova. And I don't know if it's actually credited on the album there, Marty, but Casanova was a song by the R&B soul pop duo Levert from back in the late 80s. I remember them,
yeah, Levert.
You remember that? Yeah. And so I heard Casanova at the cricket last week, and
that's the only one that they didn't write. A guy named Reggie Calloway wrote it, so that explains that. Okay,
that's right. So L.A.B. I mean, I think they're from Whakatane, and I think it's awesome. They're probably the biggest thing that's ever come out of Whakatane. But
1.2 million monthly listeners, it says on Spotify, which is crazy for a Kiwi band, man.
Yeah, and I think that's because they are accessible, they are consumable. New Zealanders really relate to a singer who sings in a New Zealand accent
True.
about things that they are familiar with.
True.
So, personally, not a fan, but LAB to me are this generation's Black Seeds, you
Yep.
know, or
Yeah,
they,
you're right.
and Veronica
Well
used
said.
that term barbecue reggae, and that is absolutely what these guys are. And I can see them following the same path that the likes of 660
Right.
charted
Yep.
in
Yep.
terms of being able to
Yep.
generate some global success, do tours and festivals and stuff
Yep.
overseas. All power to the guys, but it's a bit sugary and it's a bit lightweight for me. They're trying some nice dub engineering style things, and I can dig that. But yeah, if I go into a record store, I'm going to walk past the display and go, okay, that's nice. You other people buy that because I'm not.
There-
I gotta say though, the album art is bloody fabulous.
Wicked.
As a vinyl collector, I would buy this just because of the cover art. It looks so cool.
Okay.
You know, music aside, I think they're clearly very artistic people. So
very good.
good job.
Now, Chris and I went to a show at the Whammy Bar this past week, and we saw a band from the States called Wednesday, which is not a great name for a band, but and I was expecting them to be kind of a noisy, kind of Sonic Youthy type of, lots of shards of, and there was that, but then there seemed to be a lot more to this band. They were from North Carolina, and suddenly they go in the middle of their set, they go, "Oh, we're going to do a country song." I'm like, "Oh no!" But they did, and it was great.
They
And
nailed
they
it.
actually had like a pedal steel player there and the whole bit, and I was very impressed with the diversity of that band and how they were able to tie it all together and make it sound like it made sense together. So a thumbs up for Wednesday, the band.
Quick comment on Whammy Bar, if I
Yes,
could, Marty,
please.
just to come back to an album I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. Dinosaur Jr., my favorite rock and roll band in town, next week to perform, and I just spotted on the Whammy Bar social media yesterday that Lou Barlow,
right.
the bassist for Dinosaur Jr., also Sebado and does his own acoustic stuff, he's doing a show at Whammy Bar next Friday, and I'm kind of gutted because I have to work on Friday night but I'm going to the Dinosaur Jr. show on the Saturday at Auckland Town Hall, but I'm kind of gutted because Lou has a great track record of doing these intimate little acoustic shows where he performs his own material. And I, like everyone, I follow Lou on social media, and it seems that he is very accessible and he's also a great conversationalist.
Okay.
So I'm kind of gutted that I'm not going to get a chance to go and see Lou perform his own music on the Friday and get a record signed. I guess I'll just have to satisfy myself with the main act on the Saturday night. But all power to Whammy Bar as well. Whammy Bar doing a lot of different kinds of musical events for a range of different musical communities. My friend Michael Robbins, Red Robin, put on a sound system event there a couple of weeks ago, reggae dub event. So big ups to Whammy Bar for giving a lot of different musical communities a place.
And I think the other
really
person that
admire
needs to get kudos is Matthew Crawley. Do you know him?
Yeah, I do
He brought
know.
Wednesday
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
and I think he's doing the Lou Barlow as well. And he used to run, a couple of clubs around, but he's got back into the promotion thing, and he's doing gangbusters. Yeah, he's bringing some cool shows into town. So we support him highly. Anything else that we need to talk about today?
I have a question for Veronika.
Yes.
I have a question for Veronika. So obviously a certain American female singer in her 30s seems to be quite popular. Currently touring Australia. My question for you, Veronika, is how much would you have paid to go and see that particular performer play had money not been an issue? Because I know I'm reading these stories about plane loads of people going across. I personally know people who have flown to Australia, and I have done it myself. I have flown to Australia for a concert, but I would like to know what your absolute top dollar was if money wasn't an object, how much you would have paid to see that performer in Australia.
Okay, if money was not an issue, and if it was not in the back of my mind constantly now that she is a billionaire and no longer is her model about the fans, and this is I've been a fan since 2008, so a very, very long time. Gone are the days of secret sessions and writing cute little anecdotes in your lyrics. That's all gone. It's all about the money for me. So
preach.
Yeah, so if it was if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, millions. I would sell my kidneys. Having this conversation now,
I need a kidney. What are you charging?
but now I just okay. Here's some tea. What I'm going to say is, if you are that powerful that you have countries paying you $27 million for 6 shows to boost their economy because you're that powerful, don't tell me you do not have the power to release your tickets like normal artists do in tiers so that everybody can have a chance to get a ticket at a regular price. Do not tell me for a second this lady does not know what she's doing. She released all those tickets on purpose. She knew that people were going to be paying $20,000 for a ticket. And again, that's the tea on the street that I know from people in the industry. I don't work in ticketing, so I can say that. But like, as I said, 5 years ago, I would sell kidneys. Now, I tried to get tickets. That I gave myself a budget of the full round trip, $3,000. It's impossible. Not with how much money people were charging for hotels and tickets and plane fares. It's just not feasible.
Okay.
So for me with Miss Swift, it's got to the point where it's beyond music now. It's just straight up. It's an industry. And I was saying to someone the other day that yes, she probably you made the point there about the economy, that where she goes, it pumps money into the economy, and she probably employs dozens, hundreds of people. But at what point is it too much? And I actually saw a piece on Radio New Zealand a couple of weeks ago, Veronika. I messaged it to you on Facebook. I urge you to go and have a look at it. There was a really good piece on Radio New Zealand, and it actually questioned at what point is an artist's success too much for the society and too much for that artist. Now, I wasn't alive when the Beatles were at their peak, and I wasn't alive when Elvis was at his peak. But in my lifetime, and I'm pushing 51, I cannot remember an artist who has such a complete grasp over the entire English-speaking world. And I think it's getting to the point where it's just saturation and ridiculous. And I have an issue with that, because the more bandwidth that the likes of Taylor Swift take up, the less bandwidth there is for other independent musicians doing things that are just a bit more interesting.
You got to give Beatles credit for kind of calling it quits in '66 when they did.
Absolutely, Marty. Absolutely.
Chris,
I don't think...
I'll let Chris pop in here. I think he's got something to say.
Sorry, Chris.
No. I was appreciating all of those comments because I can relate in my own way, not with Taylor Swift, but I just emptied my savings yesterday to go and catch multiple New Zealand and Australia Pearl Jam shows.
Oh, so there you go.
Tickets
and
to 7
Pearl
gigs.
Jam, so they're a band that tried to do something about ticket prices in the 90s when Ticketmaster was the big deal in the States, and now, of course, it's Live Nation or whatever. But so to address that, Veronika, this is a band that tried to do the right thing by the fans, and they got nailed bad. I mean, they got ruined. Everybody got on their case, and they had to throw their hands up and give up. So
they tried to tour outside of the Ticketmaster monopoly, and they couldn't do it. It was logistically a nightmare. But I am also kind of disappointed, to sort of Jeff's point of like how big something gets, is the tickets were like $300 for a Pearl Jam ticket, and that's triple the price of what they were just a couple of years back around the world too. And an artist has power over the amount that they set their tickets for. They're allowing dynamic ticket pricing. The ticket system, Taylor Swift, I'm sure, was similar. It's like it's designed to stress and confuse people. Multiple pre-sale codes you get in a waiting room, but that's before you're actually in the queue. There's tickets available, but it says they're sold out for this moment, so you take an expensive ticket at the back out of fear of missing out. All these dynamics are playing into these spectacle-wide concerts, and it just hurts. Going to Whammy Bar for $50 to see Wednesday was incredible.
I just say you got to have better taste. So I spent a big money to go see my favorite band when they reunited, which was Mott the Hoople, and they reunited. They did 5 shows in 2009 at the Hammersmith in London. So I flew from New Zealand to London to go, and I went to all 5 shows, which I think the tickets
Nice.
for each of the show was maybe $50 a pop.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've got something on this as well, actually, Marty. I really like the Breeders, and I was delighted to see them on the bill with the Foo Fighters, but I wasn't prepared to pay Foo Fighters
I don't
prices
blame you.
to see the Breeders, and I mean I don't dislike the Foo Fighters, but it's like, why did I have to pay a minimum of something like $300, as Chris touched on before, to see the support band? It felt like it was unfair on me. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit precious about my tastes here, but I don't know.
Pixies
it
fans
was frustrating
will feel the same with Pearl Jam.
Well,
Pearl Jam, right?
Yeah,
and it's a similar situation, Chris. I love the Pixies. I remember those 3 great albums coming out in the late 80s, early 90s. But what's the saying for Pixies purists like myself? No Kim, no deal. And I without Kim,
Kaz.
it's not the Pixies.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. And so disappointing, but all the commentary there about ticket prices is incredibly relevant. I mean, I think it's getting to the stage where it's just ridiculous, and I get that these artists, they've got to pay a lot of people to make these shows happen. But Veronika touched on it before with her comment. Taylor is a billionaire, and she's just creaming it beyond anything that is reasonable now. And when you see the impact it has on these pathological fans,
I mean, why are they willing to pay that much money? That's the problem.
What's it doing for their What's it doing for their mental health? What's it doing for their mental health?
Forget,
and that bothers me.
Yeah, they forget she's not a arguably never was, but that's again more tea. She's not the relatable girl next door anymore. And I'm sorry, you do not need to release 15 different variants of an album which has one song difference and one photo difference. It is mad, it is wasteful, and it is just it's capitalism gone cray cray. I am so sad because I have 4 signed CDs from her that I have been collecting. Oh, you can't see them right now. I'm a stan. I don't think you quite. I've written an essay about this woman, 10,000 words, okay, for university. I love her, but I have problems with her right now. I need to stop talking about her, okay?
Speaking of problems, one last thing, and I think Marty probably wants to wrap this up. I mentioned a couple of times already today that I'm a big reggae fan, and the Bob Marley film thing, I'm just, oh, come on.
Is it bad?
I mean, well, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. Okay. But my point here is that the Marley estate is shitting on what Bob was about.
Oh dear.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they have done for a long time now. And I love Bob's music. I have a number of his albums. Waitangi Day is always important to me as a New Zealander, but also because it was Bob's birthday. But when you can buy really shitty Bob Marley turntables, really shitty Bob Marley speakers, really, there's a Bob Marley Ferris wheel somewhere now. And I mean, this film is, from what I've seen of the shorts and from reviews I've read by media outlets whose opinions I respect, this just looks like a saccharine, watered down. I can't even. I've had reggae friends say to me, "Oh, you should go and see it yourself and make your own opinion." I think I just want to let Bob's music speak to me and leave it at that, because what the Marley estate has done with his image, it's done with his music, and it's done with the kaupapa of what he was about. I'm actually starting to find it quite abhorrent. So no doubt One Love, the film, will be massive in New Zealand. A lot of people will go and see it. New Zealand is one of the nations that he really, really touched, and I've been to shows where other musicians have mentioned this. But it's just got to a point where I think Bob's legacy has been significantly diluted by his estate, to the point now where there's not a whole lot of difference between Taylor Swift and Bob Marley.
Okay. All right.
Apart from the fact one's dead and one's alive.
Gotcha. All right, to leave on a positive note, if we're going to talk about movies, I suggest that you go see a movie called Drive Away Dolls. It's a road movie by one of the Coen brothers. Raising Arizona meets Thelma and Louise. 2 lesbians get in a car, drive from Pennsylvania to
Slay.
It's like a B movie.
Great for Pride Month, Marty. Good job.
It's hilarious. Oh, the dialogue. It's like Nicolas Cage has been transformed into this outrageous lesbian buddy pick thing. I can't tell you how funny it is.
You were almost lost for words there, Matty.
Yeah, it is really enjoyable, and the music in it is just what they happen to be grooving to on the radio on the way, in their car on the way down. So it takes
really cool.
it takes place in just at the end of 1999 for no apparent reason. So there's this kind of Y2K thing hanging over their heads, but it's just a ball. It just
That sounds fun.
Yep. So
I have to watch it.
All righty. Very good, folks. Thank you for all this exciting discussion about music and film and all this stuff. I'm glad we finally got together. It was worth the wait, and we'll hopefully see you again next week. That's all for this edition of Sound Thinking.